Welcome to Filling You In, a dental podcast with A Squared, where dentist entrepreneurs and spouses, Dr. Anushka Gaglani and Dr. Abhishek Nagaraj, welcome industry experts and innovators to explore trends in business practices, patient care, career development, and what it takes to be successful in dentistry.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Filling You In. I'm Dr. Abhishek Nagaraj.
And I'm Dr. Anushka Gaglani, collectively known as A Squared. Believe it or not, we're not the only married couple in the dental field that hosts the podcast. Our guests, Kim Larson and Bill Neumann, are both seasoned veterans in the dental industry and co-founders of Group Dentistry Now, a multimedia company dedicated to providing relevant news, education, products, consulting, and other services to DSOs and dental group practices.
The 10-year-old company is recognized as the #1 DSO and dental group resource with a sphere of influence of over 150,000 dental professionals. Its mission includes increasing oral health accessibility, educating the next generation of dentists on their options, and fueling the success of group dentistry and DSOs. Bill and Kim have established themselves as trusted experts in the DSO space, which is on full display as co-hosts of the Group Dentistry Now podcast, the #1 ranked DSO podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kim and Bill.
Thanks for having us, and congratulations on your podcast.
Thank
Very
you. We're
exciting.
following in your very well-rounded footsteps.
Yes.
So we'd like to start first with learning more about your backgrounds and career journeys. Kim, you started off in healthcare publishing, right?
I did.
What drew you to the field, and what are some career highlights on your way to co-founding Group Dentistry Now?
Well, I just got a job in ophthalmology publishing out of college and sort of ran with it. And I stayed in healthcare publishing for years and years, and eventually met Bill and married him. And we started an app called Dental Sales Pro app, and it was the first of its kind. And we sold that to a publisher. And then in around 2012, we were at the CDA meeting, and people were talking about groups, dental groups, and how it would eventually follow the same path that medical did in terms of consolidation. And I was really interested in that. So I went back and I started to research about it on the internet. And all I found was terrible information about DSOs, how awful they were, how horrible they were. But the more I researched it, I thought, but there's so much good that they are doing that isn't being shared. So it really became our mission to start a company that would help explain DSOs and groups to people. And that's what we did in 2014. And so here we are in 2025 and still going strong.
It's an amazing story, and I think mission accomplished.
I hope so.
And Anushka, this is why it's cool to start a podcast, because you learn things that we probably wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Like,
Most
this is
definitely.
awesome. Bill,
Yeah.
I understand your career had more to do with growing flowers than growing businesses. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into them.
Yes, certainly not something that was top of mind when I was in college or career path, and neither was dentistry for sure. But yeah, I had a finance management major and had interned at an accounting firm over the summer and really disliked what looked like it would be a very boring career. And so it was too far into my major to make a change. And so looked for some job opportunities. And this happened to be a sales role, a sales management role with a fertilizer and flower bulb company. And so it was one of the few opportunities out there that was available to me. And I enjoyed the person that had interviewed me, who was going to be my boss and who became my boss. So I was selling flower bulbs, tulips, daffodils, and fertilizer, and probably a lot more than that. You name it, irises, and anything. Probably flowers you never heard of, to horticultural centers around the country at 18 states. So that's really how I that was my first job out of college, like Kim's was, although a little bit different. And then I got into the dental industry with that sales background. Again, it was not something that I was looking for. I know I went to the dentist, but I didn't really understand the industry side of it. But was fortunate enough to get my first career opportunity with a company called, at the time, Colteen Whale-Dent.
Wow. That's very cool.
That's awesome.
So, what is the backstory of starting Group Dentistry Now? And I think you went a little bit into the need, but what exactly was the need that you were trying to fill? If you could go a little more into detail on that, and who is your audience?
Well, that's an interesting question. Our audience, we were met with such anger and hatred, and people were raking us over the coals because our mission was to explore the good side of groups. So for me personally, increasing access to care for everyone, that would include people who live in rural areas as well as the inner cities who didn't necessarily have the same access to care as those who were living in the suburbs or something like that. So when I started to learn the numbers that these kids were going to school in pain, or if they had a tooth issue, they were going to the emergency room because they didn't have access to a dentist. And it was, as a parent, I was heartbroken, and I thought there are so many good things that DSOs are doing because they're going into these areas where a solo practitioner can't go. So again, another piece to that passion is the high cost of dental school. So every year the cost of dental school goes up. So these students are coming out of dental school with 300, 400, 500,000, sometimes upwards of $1 million if you're including their undergraduate costs. So they need a place to learn. They're not getting tons of wet finger experience in school. So they need a mentor. They need somewhere to go. They have all this debt. So I was again thinking, well, DSOs, they're helping these students do this, but what they're telling the students is that DSOs are awful, but yet they've handcuffed them with debt and also not having all the skills that they probably need to feel confident sitting in the chair. I mean, sorry, sitting in the chair. Sorry. Anyway, so that was what fueled our passion. And it was really tough in the beginning, and we wanted to quit a lot I wanted to quit a lot but Bill kept saying, we're just going to keep pushing through. So basically I would find a few crumbs and I would sort of glue them together to form an article. There was nothing, but it has grown so much since then. Obviously we feel that, well, we hope that we had an important part of evolving the industry, helping people see that DSOs have great things to contribute. Also, giving dental students all of the information. We've written a course for the largest dental school in the United States that they give to all their D4s, and it explains to them what a DSO is, but more importantly, what a DSO isn't, and all the options out there, all the models, what they need to do to advocate for themselves, and that really, Dr. Mark Cooper is the one who coined the phrase, when you've seen one DSO, you've seen one DSO. And it is true. And we've seen, gosh, I don't know, Bill, how many DSOs have we? Lots and lots of DSOs. So I don't know if that kind of explains how difficult it was in the beginning. And now it's we're in a totally different space. And we truly have sort of followed medical in that it's the consolidation is just happening more and more, and it's more accepted now to work for a DSO. Dental students are coming out not feeling ashamed or embarrassed, or they're going to do subpar dentistry and be controlled by the DSO, and they're going to be told what products they can and cannot use, and they're going to be pushed to have a certain production number. It's not like that, and so we'd like to think that we had some part in that. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I just find the evolution pretty interesting. Is going back to 2014, even before that, when we were Group Dentistry Now was more of a thought. There wasn't a website, and yet, right, Kim's right. There was no information out there. I think DSOs were kind of hiding because of a lot of the negativity. And Yeah, some of it was probably justified. There were some, bad actors, just like there are with solo practice in anything.
Yeah.
So you kind of fast forward to today, and there are more options than ever for dentists looking to transition, right, to sell their practice, to form a partnership with an organization. There are groups like Aereo Dental out there that are doctor owned and led, and which is a great option. And so when that term, and we as an industry don't do the best job, DSO is just assigned to everybody that has more than 3 locations. And so that can be extremely confusing for people in the industry looking to join. So it's and that's, I think, where we come in, and I think we'll discuss that a little bit later in the podcast. One of the things that Kim does a really good job with the DSOs and group practices that she works with, but it's fascinating to see the industry change. And, we're very fortunate to be part of it and work with people like Aereo. It's a lot of fun. And, people like you that we consider our friends, not just business acquaintances.
Well, that just to jump on what Bill's saying, some people don't understand the DSO space, and you say the DSO space, and they think of Aspen, Smile Brands, right? Heartland, like that's what they think. They think there's like 5 DSOs. They have no idea that really there's all this magic that's happening with these smaller groups. It's just amazing. So that's part of our job, is to give a spotlight for groups like Aereo. And we love to do that because there are so many great groups like yours out there doing a great job and growing in a really healthy way.
Thank you both. I
Yeah.
heard a lot of good things that you guys said. One of the things you said is that you've seen one DSO, right? What are your thoughts in terms of, somebody needed to take the baton and actually talk about this, right? I'm just glad it's you two that did that, right? And you
Right.
two come across as 2 really resilient and genuine people. And I know there's some battle scars along the way, and we want to get to that a little bit, right, as a business owner. But Bill, we mentioned that Group Dentistry Now is a multimedia company, right? In addition to your podcast, can you tell us a little bit about what other content do you guys provide?
Yeah, and I'm sure Kim can certainly speak to the content side, since she's pretty much the one that does almost all the content on the website. And if you look at going back to 2014 to today, we have, I think it's over 2,000 articles on the website, and that the content side of it is a real mix of editorial, so telling stories like the Aereo story, the Emerging Groups to Watch Awards that we just announced for this year. We do DSO Deal Roundup, or should I say Kim does the DSO Deal Roundup every month, DSO People. So there's the content side of it. There's obviously the podcast, which we're up to almost 200 episodes.
Wow.
We do webinars. There's quite a bit that we do. And then, of course, we have that DSO Weekly newsletter where we compile everything that we've done over a given week, and then we deliver that newsletter to an audience of about 9,600 subscribers. So it's, and really being one of the first to market. So we have that first mover advantage where we were talking about DSOs before DSOs were cool. So it's a good place to be. And again, it's just a lot of fun to see the industry mature. Some of it's good. I'd say the majority of it's good. Some of it's not so good, but in general, it's good.
Yeah, totally agree. And something you guys both said is, people would look at it as the industry is like five players, right? That's totally not true. So we can definitely see that happening for sure. So Kim, beyond the content offerings, what are some other aspects of what you offer to the field through Group Dentistry Now?
So on the DSO side, they come to me asking for help on how to position themselves with their content, how to reach the audience, because that's our number one thing is how do you reach the audience? What message do you need to deliver to them? So they come to me and they ask me to help them craft their press releases and how to create content. I advise them on those sorts of things. And then with the vendors, we actually just did this at a show, Bill and I did, how to market to a DSO for the vendors, because the messaging is completely different than how you market to to the traditional dental industry. So we do have that course that we just started teaching, and that's been great. Also, with events, a lot of them come to us to consult. Um, we'll give our honest opinions. We'll try to help guide them, whether or not they take it. I mean, events are very difficult right now. We're seeing this across the board in the industry. Everybody um, is struggling to get people there because there are so many more events. And not only are there industry events, that DSOs are now having their own events, right? So I think we were talking about before the podcast, you have your own little leadership meeting, and all these DSOs are having partner meetings and they want their vendors there. So that's a pull on the vendors for the resources. So we do try to consult with vendors and with events and try to help them with what they're going to present. We stay behind the scenes most of the time. So we also wrote an educational course, I think that I had briefly touched on, for NYU Langone School of Dentistry, that all their D4s use. And we're kind of in the works with another school too right now, possibly, just to create a course for them so that they have a clear understanding. So we do a lot of work in the background as well. So it's great. I love working with the DSOs. I like working with the vendors. I like teaching people. Again, it's like one of those things where I sometimes say to them, I know this feels like a teacher grading your paper, but I feel like my passion and my goal is to, whatever your message, I want that message, whatever your message is, whether you're a DSO trying to convey the message or a vendor trying to convey your message, I want it to reach the audience. You can lead a horse to water sometimes, or whatever. So
You're absolutely right.
Where do you guys find the time? I'm
Wow.
hearing all of this and I'm
we
like,
work all the time. We work all of the time.
wow, it's amazing.
How do we do it? I don't know.
Well, like you said, you work all the time. Sometimes I don't know, but yeah, it's a lot. I mean, but it's still rewarding. I don't think we would be doing it if it wasn't. And Kim is very operationally focused, so she's very disciplined. I'm less disciplined, so I'm happy that we're a balance. She's more of the operations and the creative side, and I'm more the sales than probably certainly the growth side, and maybe overpromising a little bit every once in a while, and then having to deliver, which is unfortunately Kim's job a lot of times.
But I think, honestly, we had this discussion with you both, or maybe it was just me. I don't remember. Maybe Phil, you were there. But we had talked about it, how you guys are similar to us in that Bill and I don't even need to use words, right? We already know. We've been married for almost 30 years.
Wow.
We don't even need to speak.
Yeah.
We already know what the other person's going to say. And I think you guys have said the same thing. You already know what the thought is. You don't even need the conversation. So it's like a seamless thing, because I already know he's not going to like this. This is going to make him upset, or vice versa, or he's going to love this. And so, that's worked in our favor. And I think you can just move so quickly and so smoothly, right? Because you don't have to deal with not understanding how to communicate to the other person.
But I want to dive in on that a little bit. It's probably, you guys have worked on this over the years, correct? Or was it always where you found out that you guys had complementary skills at the beginning of your careers, or have you guys really worked up to that?
I don't know. What do you think, Bill?
That is a great question. Like, how did we end up deciding to work together? Maybe it was out of necessity. It's either Kim needed help or I needed help, but I think a lot of it was always sharing ideas, knowing that when I was working or she was working for another organization, that we wanted to do something on our own. We might not have necessarily known what that was at the time, and would bounce ideas off of each other. And I think I was, again, kind of going back to the earlier points, I'm an idea person. I have a lot of great ideas and a lot of bad ideas. So Kim would, more bad than good. And so Kim would kind of point, she's laughing about some of them that we probably won't discuss because they're embarrassing when I think back. But when I did have a good idea, she was shocked, but then said, "Yeah, we should go with that." And then again, her operation and just operations background really helps. So yeah, it's just it just happened to, I think, be get very fortunate, and I'm sure you see that with your own business where you have different skill sets and. People, I'm sure, ask you like, how you're married, how can you work with each other? And I could never do that. If you hear that, and I
Do
just,
you hear that? Do you guys hear that?
All the
We
time.
do, and our answer is always the same. How can you not?
I know, right? I can't imagine. Like, I could never work. Like, I can't imagine building what we've built. I'm sure that you guys would say the same thing. I can't imagine being where we are, building what we've built without being married and being completely with each other all the time. I mean, we live in the same house, we work in the same house. It doesn't feel, we're not just saying it. I'm not a
Yeah.
liar. It just
Yeah.
feels right and natural. And right, Bill's right. People will say like, "Oh my gosh, I could never work with my spouse." You're right. I can't imagine being alone out there and not working with them. Not
That's-
having someone have my back and know what I'm thinking and know my boundaries and know my and push me, right? Because he'll push me. There's plenty of things I don't like to do. I think we've talked about that. And he will push me to do it. He'll say, you really have to do it. And 2024 was kind of my year to start really listening to him about that, and stepping out of my comfort zone and pushing myself like you guys, right? So I'm sure you push each other to do things that you're not comfortable doing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we can definitely relate to that. It's like it's working with your best friend, right?
Mhm.
So totally.
Yeah.
We completely get that.
Yep.
And not to forget, Anushka, when there has to be deep alignment, right? And when
Mhm.
couples say like, I could never work with my wife or husband, to your point, I find it a little bit sad because they haven't found the alignment that they need in their business, and they aren't working for one common goal, and they both are off doing their own thing. It's a little bit sad to me, and I think we explored that in another episode too, Anushka. We did that with another couple, which is cool but also sad. I want to talk about the growth piece, Bill. I know you said how Group Dentistry Now has grown over the last 10 years or so. Can you tell us maybe what are some key factors that have led to your growth to where you are today? And what are some battle scars along the way? I'm really curious about that.
yeah, I think we've had great growth. So we started. I mean, if I look at and when you're a small company, it's relatively easy to see. When you look at your financials and you see this line that kind of goes like this to a point. And then all of a sudden, it might flatten out, or sometimes it even drops down a little bit. And you have to almost kind of go, okay, we had this great growth. We thought it would never stop, even though we all know that's not realistic. I think a lot of it is kind of staying true to what our mission was. Kim discussed that earlier on. But really, with what we do being a media company is, and I think a lot of media companies fall short because they look for the revenue side of things. And not that we're not interested in revenue. We have to have a business that's healthy and profitable. But you look at the reader experience. What is a reader of an online publication, or when I get a newsletter, or when I watch a podcast or listen to a webinar, what's the best experience for that reader or viewer? And if we're not delivering that, and we may be doing things that are generating more revenue, like let's do an e-blast for a company, and you probably, as somebody who subscribes to something, going, oh my gosh, I'm getting 3 emails a day from this organization. Yeah. There is, this is not what I signed up for. So we deliver 1 newsletter a week. We make sure we have a balance of editorial and sponsored content because we need to pay the light bills. And if Kim does a great job, which she does, guiding the vendors to the industry partners to write content that's going to resonate with group practices and DSOs. And you're going to be like, hey, this is great. This is educational. I'm going to read this. So a lot of it is, what's the reader experience like? And if we can do that, then we're going to get people to open up the newsletter and follow what Kim publishes on LinkedIn and pay attention to the vendors. And so that's really what we've tried to stay true to. And that is really, it's helped us where I think some other media companies haven't done that. And there's just been, in fact, last year there was a 60-year-old publication that in dental that shut its doors. So I think you're going to see more of that. It's a challenging time, 2024, and we can talk about that. I think, and you have a question coming up about what the industry looks like and how 2024 was. But for media, I think it was really, really challenging, and not everybody fared really well. And we're fortunate we had a really good year. We grew last year when I think a lot of others didn't.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. I think that's the passion you both have for this is evident, and I think that's a true reason for the success as well, on top of the value that you're adding to the industry.
And I think one last thing I'll just say, because I always say this, is we're dental people. We're dental people first. We're not publishers. So a lot of times you've got people that are publishers that don't necessarily understand the industry or don't, attend the meetings and don't spend time with people. And so I probably spend more time than I should or want to at some meetings, but it is really important. And I think that's a great way to just kind of stay true to the industry and just be a part of it, because it is changing so quickly. From a DSO and dentist perspective, all the new technologies and solutions out there, if we don't pay attention to that, you just you'll get left behind pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, most
Spot
definitely.
on.
So what is you alluded to it earlier in the media. What is your assessment of how DSOs did in 2024, and what do you expect for the industry in 2025 and beyond?
Well, I'll just give a little bit and then I'll let Bill, that's kind of his thing. But I do the DSO deal roundup every month, and we did see significant slowing in terms of consolidation happen, especially with the bigger players. However, I've noticed in the past, say 2-3 months, it's starting to pick up with everybody, including the big guys. But what's interesting is we're seeing a lot of layoffs on the DSO side, but also most especially on the vendor side, which is interesting. But
yeah, I'll jump in there. I think and Kim keeps mentioning the DSO Deal Roundup, which is probably one of our most popular articles, where just she compiles all the de novos and acquisitions, and if there's any major investments in the industry. And so Kim has a finger on the pulse of that more so than anybody else. And I think it is really interesting with the it was really slow. I'd say the first 2, maybe 3 quarters of 2024 as far as acquisitions. I know there were a lot of deals that were supposed to happen, recapitalization events. I think the number was somewhere around 30 to 40 recapitalizations. So there were some deals out there, didn't happen. And I think 3 or 4 maybe got done in 2024. So if you figure, there's private equity owns a group and they have a time frame of 5 to 7 years. And there were about 30 of these groups that were owned by private equity that were at that 5 to 7 year time frame and were looking to make a deal and just couldn't do it. But it seems like there's some things that are happening that happened late last year and early this year. I don't know if it's going to be, I think it's going to be maybe Q3 or Q4 before we see a ton of activity, but it definitely feels there's some optimism this year. And I think some of it is just, we've waited so long and the maybe the valuations of 2021 and 2022 probably they might never come back. So I think there's this realization that whatever, I hate to say new normal, but this is, they're just being realistic with your expectations. So yeah, the industry, it was bumpy for some groups out there, and then others seem to really do well. And a lot of it just is, I think, hey, did you build a well-rounded, solid business where did you have, or did you grow organically? I think focused on the fundamentals. I mean, you both do that really, really well. I mean, we were talking about that at Yankee. And talking to some third parties that know the inside and outside of your businesses, and we're just singing your praises. So, but a lot of groups haven't done that, they were built through duct taping acquisitions and maybe didn't really look at the culture and the synergies, didn't integrate well. And I think those are the ones that are looking at really like the big losers and everything. They thought they could easily just grow through acquisition and that was it. And that's not the case.
Yeah, those are some amazing points. Speaking of consolidation, right? I'd like both of you to weigh in on this. I know a lot of the industry experts we talk to are predicting that about 75 to 80% of the industry will be consolidated in about 10 years, right? It's still fairly fragmented for those dentist entrepreneurs or groups looking to consolidate and roll up practices. Do you guys share that perspective, and is that your prediction?
I'll let you try. You go
Well,
go
okay,
first.
so
Yeah.
I think depending on who you talk to, what authority,
Yeah.
I think now we're at about 30 to 40%, somewhere in that ballpark.
Mhm.
And it's just going to keep happening. There will always be home for the solo practitioner. I don't want to, I don't think that there's ever going to be a time where there aren't solo practitioners. But yeah, I think consolidation is going to continue ramping up to that figure. And I think it's like a perfect storm. You've got these high dental costs, these high costs of dental schools. That's a huge factor that a lot of people don't even talk about. And that's not going down anytime soon. That's just going to keep going up and up and up. Why? I don't know. But
Yeah.
what do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I think this is one of those questions that's so hard to answer because first off, again, go back to this, what's the definition of a DSO? And so when we look at the consolidation in the market, we as an industry don't have a definitive term. Like everybody looks at DSOs different. So I do think there's going to be continued consolidation. And what I mean by that is we're going to see fewer and fewer dentists practicing alone. And what you'll see is and so if that's consolidation, if that's what we call consolidation, yeah, absolutely. We're going to see more docs working, either owning multiple locations or working in what I would call a one location group practice with multiple clinicians. So I think you see that model where there's just docs working together in some type of modality, whether it's a single location, a DSO that has 17 or 1,800 locations like a Heartland, or somebody like you that's a private group practice, doctor-owned, doctor-led, that can provide opportunities that, dentists like Kim mentioned that have just an incredible amount of student debt, need that mentorship and want to work in a setting, and they don't want to be on an island. So I think, yeah, we're going to see it. Who knows what the percentage is?
And this is a whole new generation of people, right? So they think differently than perhaps we're probably older than you, but our generation, they really value the work-life balance. So this is huge for them. I don't need to tell you guys, you know better than us how you're right. So that's a huge factor. So they're not driven to hang the shingle and work all day and then at night have to worry about everything else, all the administrative parts of the business, personnel issues, and accounting issues and payroll issues and equipment's going down, and the list goes on and on. So that mindset, I think, is also going to contribute to the growth of consolidation.
You absolutely nailed it, Kim, with the work-life balance piece, right? We tried to call it work-life harmony, but ultimately it doesn't matter how you slice it, right? People want work-life balance at the end of the day. Anushka, go ahead.
Two things you guys said really resonated. The student debt is a real thing. I have friends that between undergrad and dental school, they came out with $700,000 in student debt. And the funny thing to me is the dental schools are in the same breath telling them, well, you dentists, ethically, you shouldn't make money. And it's like those two things don't align, right? Like, don't overdiagnose. We hear that a lot. I can't do a crown because that's overdiagnosing. No, actually, if you patch this tooth with 40 fillings, you're going to end up with an implant. That's actually worse. So we kind of run into that quite a bit. So that was a really interesting point that you brought up. And the second one is, I agree. It's the industry is changing so much, and there's so much compliance and regulations. And even in Illinois, I think there were probably 10 laws passed just last year that affect dental practices. How does a solo practitioner keep up with that? I'm sure there's a way, but it's definitely a lot more challenging. So totally resonated with those 2 points.
Yep.
Yeah. So lastly, the Group Dentistry Now podcast, incredible podcast. You guys have done such a great job. Like we mentioned, it's the #1 DSO podcast out there. Tell us a little bit more about it, and what do you hope listeners gain from tuning in?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. It's been a lot of fun, and we got pulled into podcasting, not necessarily wanting to do it. We started the website first, and I think we were more than happy just to do a website with articles, and but it was probably right around COVID time, maybe a little bit before, but people were asking, and I listen to podcasts, so of course you're like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Of course, fast forward to we're almost 200 episodes. But as far as what we like the audience to get out of the podcast, I mean, similar to what we want people to get out of the content that we create on the website is understanding more about the DSO industry. And we have a real, I would say, a diverse audience. And so people kind of always go, well, is it who is subscribing to your newsletter and listening to the podcast? And it's really the industry as a whole. So that could be the chief executive officer at one of the large DSOs, or the dentist that works at one of the larger groups. And then the other end of the spectrum, I always call them the DSO curious dentist. And I have one location, and maybe I want to sell to a DSO. I want to maybe start my own group, add a practice or two. Maybe I just want to learn from a DSO because I'm not really, maybe there's some tips and tricks and things like that. And then, of course, we have people like you, which are the emerging groups, and then everybody, the vendors, everybody in between. But I think just to let people understand that there are so many different models out there, and then give vendors an opportunity to highlight the relationships they have in the industry and to discuss how their products and their solutions really can affect the growth of a group practice. And there are plenty of solutions out there, but a lot of them aren't geared to servicing multi-site or DSOs. They might have a great clinical solution, but if you ask them to help educate and train your entire team, they might not have the bandwidth. They may not really be able to address the needs of a larger group. So yeah, it's a similar. The mission is just to educate the industry on what's happening in that group practice space.
We can vouch for the great work you both do with your podcast. We were honored to be guests on your podcast. More importantly, we've tuned into a lot of your episodes. It's the insightful questions you both ask to your guests that drives a lot of value to the rest of the industry. We can absolutely vouch for that.
100%.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anushka, dive into the lightning round.
So we're going to do the lightning round. We're going to do alternate, and then the last question's for both of you. So, Bill, what was your last impulse buy?
Well, it's probably this quarter zip here. So I definitely probably buy way too many clothes, but comfortable clothes for the most part. And for whatever reason, I love quarter zips. So I love everybody's much more casual than they used to be. I used to be a coat and tie person in meetings, and now I have gone the opposite route. So this was one that just magically appeared in the mail, and sometimes Kim gets to my packages before I do, and she's like, "Uh-oh, what did he buy now?" And so a lot of it is, I kind of like clothes.
Living on the wild side, I see.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy stuff.
So, Kim, what are the 3 least likely words someone would use to describe you?
Me. I should do it for him. Let's see. For me, I would say junk food lover, right? Fake and impulsive.
Oh, okay.
And then let's think for Bill. I would give quiet. Bill's quiet, concise when he speaks. And what would be the third thing that's not you? What's another one, Bill?
Calm.
Quiet and calm.
Yeah. And if anybody's driven with me, they would probably know that I'm the opposite of calm.
Be the passenger in his car. It's very easy.
And I'll tell you what the two most common likely things people would say about you both is you're in sync with each other.
Oh, well, you guys too.
Very much.
I feel the same way about you guys. It's evident that you work well together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last question for both of you. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Well, my genre, this is a tough one because and Kim can attest to this. I probably switch up my songs every single day. I sing all the time at home and at work, to a point where Kim really just has to tell me to shut up. But I would say it's either probably 70s or 80s era, probably something like Sweet Home Alabama by Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Nice.
But something like that. Again, it would change day to day, but that happened to be it's probably the song I thought about. And most people actually know because a lot of people don't know the songs from the 70s and 80s anymore.
True.
How about you, Kim?
I've only done karaoke once, and I was backpacking through Europe for 4 months, and I was in Galway, Ireland, and it was like some dive bar, and the guy insisted that I get up and do it. I was like, what? But anyway, I did it. So it was Super Trooper, ABBA's Super Trooper. That was the only time I've ever done it. It was traumatizing.
That sounds like a lot of fun, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bill and Kim, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having us.
I'm Dr. Abhishek Nagaraj.
And I'm Dr. Anushka Gaglani. Thanks for checking out today's show, and we hope you can join us again next time.
Thanks for watching this episode of Filling You In, where we uncover the insights, trends, and stories shaping the dental industry. If you like this podcast, please share it on your social channels and visit Aereo Dental Group on LinkedIn or on Instagram @Aereo Dental Group. You can also subscribe to the series and check out all of our episodes on this YouTube channel or at aerodental.com/podcast. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and let's keep elevating the dental field together.